The girl spent 5 years. She dug 47 graves, just to bury everyone in the village. 15 years ago, God abandoned the world. From that moment on, no new life could be born, and no one could truly die. Even if a person's heart stopped beating, even if their body rotted away, they would still continue to exist. So in order to save these undead, God created the gravekeepers. Only when a gravekeeper buries these living dead, can they finally receive true rest. Aston's mother was once the gravekeeper of the village, but after her mother passed away, Aston was taken in by the villagers, and she became the new gravekeeper of the village. Her daily job was to dig graves on the hill. The villagers cherished Aston deeply, yet sometimes, when they looked at her, their eyes were filled with sorrow. Aston did not understand why. She always felt the villagers were hiding something from her. One day, Aston finally finished digging enough graves. She was just about to return to the village to share the news, when a mysterious man suddenly appeared before her. After learning that Aston was a gravekeeper, the man asked her about a woman named Hannah. When Aston couldn't answer, the man assumed he had come to the wrong place. As he was about to leave, Aston asked for his name. The man introduced himself as Hampne. Hearing his name, Aston became overjoyed, because her mother once told her her father's name was Hampne. No matter how he tried to explain, Aston was certain he was her father. Helpless, Hampne brought Aston to the village square, and told her to bury all the undead here. It turned out that Hampne had killed them, but he claimed he did it to give them peace. The naive Aston couldn't understand why he would kill such kind villagers. Angry, Aston swung her shovel at Hampne, but Hampne kicked her unconscious. When Aston woke from her fainting, Hampne immediately brought her to the hill, and told her to bury the villagers properly. Those 47 graves took Aston 5 years to dig, but now she had to bury the very people who treated her as family. She never expected this day to come so soon. So Aston took up the shovel that symbolized a gravekeeper, and buried each villager with her own hands. And because they were buried by a true gravekeeper like Aston, the villagers finally received peace, for they had already been dead long ago. They only hid the truth from her, so that she could grow up happy. By the time the burial ceremony was complete, the sun was setting. Aston did not know where to go, so she simply followed Hampne. But Hampne believed Aston was not a gravekeeper, because gravekeepers were created by God. They could not have parents. At that moment, a true gravekeeper passed by. This gravekeeper called herself Scarface, but Scarface was only a title, not her real name. Although she held goodwill toward the living, she did not possess human emotions. Hampne then asked Scarface to formally bury the 47 villagers on the hill, because he believed Aston was not a real gravekeeper, and therefore could not truly grant them peace. But Scarface said she did not sense any undead, and she affirmed that Aston was indeed a gravekeeper. After parting ways with Scarface, Hampne asked Aston what she planned to do next. Aston said she would go wherever a gravekeeper was needed, to fulfill her duty. So Hampne punched her down. He told her to forget she was a gravekeeper, forget everything that happened in the village, and start anew. Only then could she survive in this cruel world. But Aston firmly stated she must fulfill her role as a gravekeeper. Hampne pointed his gun at Aston's forehead. He believed someone as pure as Aston would eventually be corrupted by the world, so she might as well die now. At that moment, a bullet struck Hampne. The man who fired was named Sagittarius. The two used to be close friends, but they became divided by their beliefs about the undead. Hampne believed the undead should be buried by gravekeepers to rest peacefully, but Sagittarius hid his dead wife to prevent her from being found by a gravekeeper, so Hampne killed Sagittarius's wife. From then on, Sagittarius searched for Hampne to take revenge, but Hampne was a special being. He could not grow old or die. After losing his wife and daughter, Sagittarius lost the will to live, so he used revenge as an excuse, hoping Hampne would kill him. But seeing through everything, Hampne refused to kill him. He only lied and told Sagittarius to meet him in the village square the next morning. That night, Hampne quietly left the village, and coincidentally encountered Aston, so the two continued on their journey together. Along the way, Hampne often complained that Aston was clumsy, but he never abandoned her. At night, they camped among ruins. Aston offered him a biscuit, but Hampne refused. As an immortal being, he no longer needed to eat to survive. But seeing Aston's disappointed expression, he finally took a piece. Then Hampne asked Aston's age. Upon learning she was 12, he realized the truth. Aston was likely the child of a gravekeeper and a human, because since the day God abandoned the world, no new life had been born, so a 12-year-old child like her should not exist. Aston curiously asked about Hampne's past. He told her he used to be frail and sickly, so when his condition stabilized at age 17, he made a wish. He wished that day would last forever. Coincidentally, on that day, God abandoned the world and granted his wish, so his life became frozen at 17. Although Hampne was a special case, most others were undead, unable to rest. They continued wandering as living corpses, and over time, they would lose their sanity, becoming like beasts. That was why Hampne killed Sagittarius' wife. Aston asked why he had killed the villagers, but Hampne did not answer. He only told her she would understand the truth about the village one day. That night, Aston had a dream. She remembered her mother once saying she wanted to turn that village into a paradise, a place filled with love and happiness. The next day, the two continued their journey. Aston asked Hampne why he chose to travel. Hampne said that besides looking for his beloved, he also wanted to find a way to die, because time continues to move forward, and eventually humanity will come to an end. He didn't want to be the last one left in the entire world. At that moment, Hampne sensed danger. He immediately kicked Aston off the bridge. When Aston woke up, she found Sagittarius beside her. She was furious. She wanted to go question Hampne, but Sagittarius persuaded her. Hampne did it to save her life, because once Hampne realized he could not defeat his enemy, he would choose to self-destruct to eliminate them, and after that, he would soon revive again. Then Sagittarius took out a photograph and showed it to Aston. Aston recognized the woman in the picture instantly as her mother, and she finally confirmed Hampne was her father. Aston decided to go find Hampne. Sagittarius worried for her safety and chose to accompany her. At this time, Scarface also arrived, having sensed the presence of the undead, so the three of them set out together. Meanwhile, Hampne had been tied to a rack. A group of people in front of him claimed to be his fans. They wanted to become immortal like him, but Hampne simply laughed at them in disdain. Just as they were about to punish Hampne, the door was kicked open by Scarface. Scarface sensed the undead among them, so she declared she had come to bury them. Hampne told Aston to leave immediately. He did not want Aston to fall into danger, but Aston shouted loudly that she was his daughter, and she began describing her mother's appearance, her personality, and her favorite foods. In that moment, Hampne seemed to see his wife and Aston's expression. A single bullet struck one of the men, and the battle began. Hampne watched Aston as she fought. The heavy weight in his heart finally lifted. He never imagined that he would have a daughter. He realized he had not been alone in this world after all. He simply had never fulfilled his duty as a father. When the battle ended, Hampne slowly lost consciousness. He wanted to speak to his daughter, but he was so tired and so sleepy, and at that moment, his lingering regret dissolved. The curse of immortality was finally lifted. When he opened his eyes again, he had become a true undead. He had once wished for death more than anything, but now he wanted to live. Yet it was already too late. In order to leave his daughter with something to remember him by, Hampne spent one brief day accompanying Aston. Aston wished her father could stay with her forever, but she could not say it out loud, because as a gravekeeper, she had the duty to bury the undead. So Aston calmly dug a grave and laid Hampne to rest beside her mother. Thus, Aston, Sagittarius, and Scarface set off on their journey once more. On the road, they rescued a boy. His name was Kiriko. He had been attacked by bandits and escaped with great effort. He collapsed along the roadside and was saved by the three of them. He was currently working as an intern in a government office in Ordis. Hearing the name Ordis, Sagittarius' expression darkened slightly, but he still agreed to escort Kiriko to the area near it. Aston was puzzled. Why not just take him directly into the city? At that moment, their vehicle suddenly broke down. It seemed they had no choice but to enter Ordis, but Sagittarius said Ordis was far too dangerous, because it was the largest sanctuary for the undead in the world. Every gravekeeper who had ever been drawn there had been killed without exception. This was why Sagittarius did not want Aston to enter the city. Soon, they arrived at the city gate for registration. With Kiriko's help, the guards allowed them into the living district to trade, but their movements would be strictly limited. Once the procedures were completed, they drove into the city. The place was brightly lit. The streets were lively and prosperous. Even though they knew the inhabitants were all undead, the atmosphere felt warm and peaceful, just like any ordinary nation. The next morning, Aston woke up in the inn, but Sagittarius was nowhere to be seen, and Scarface had suddenly fallen ill. Before leaving, Sagittarius told Scarface she must not let Aston go outside, because it would be dangerous, but Aston was not the kind of child who listened, so she asked the innkeeper for a mask, and ran out into the streets to explore. Everything here was new and fascinating to her. Just as Aston stood at the entrance of a theater, watching the performers prepare for the show, someone suddenly snatched the flyer from her hand. Aston chased after him. The person told her she needed to leave immediately. Meanwhile, Kiriko arrived before Princess Ola. Ola declared that he was the hero who would save the world. Then Kiriko left the castle and ran right into Aston. He hurriedly told her to return to the inn because she was a living person, but Aston was confused. Kiriko was also alive, so why could he walk around freely? Kiriko told her that he was neither undead nor alive. There were once 5 people who were very close to each other. They lived together, dreaming that one day they could have a child of their own, but the world had already been abandoned by the gods. No children had been born for a very long time, so they sought out a witch. The witch took from each of the 5 what was necessary to create a human life, and from that, she created Kiriko. Not long after, Aston met 2 of those 5 people. One of them was named Kosetsu. She served as the royal physician of the country of the dead. The moment Aston heard that she was a physician, she immediately dragged her to look at Scarface's condition, but what Kosetsu didn't expect was that Scarface had a strange illness called false pregnancy. This illness came from the intense desire to have a child, and ever since the world was abandoned by the gods, cases like this had only become more common, but Scarface was not human. She had never wanted a child. Kosetsu guessed that it must have something to do with the childless voice Scarface recently heard. Though Kosetsu wasn't able to cure Scarface this time, she ended up spending half the day playing with Aston instead. The next day, Kiriko brought Aston to meet the princess of the country of the dead Ola. Ola's entire body was wrapped in bandages, wrapped up so tightly that not even a sliver of skin could be seen, yet she still greeted Aston with a gentle smile. Then she picked up a pen and introduced herself by writing on paper. Aston was overjoyed, and the 2 girls quickly began talking, laughing together. They became close in no time. Meanwhile, a group of living people was traveling across the desert, headed straight for the country of the dead. Aston returned to the inn and excitedly told Sagittarius that she had made a new friend. Sagittarius told her that their car was almost repaired. Hearing this, Aston couldn't help feeling disappointed. She knew she would have to leave soon. Suddenly, a bell rang, cutting their conversation short. Sagittarius immediately looked alert. Then Kiriko walked in, informing them that Ordis was under emergency lockdown. He explained that 105 living people had requested to immigrate into Ordis, and that tonight, a ceremony would be held to turn them into undead. Aston couldn't understand why anyone would willingly choose to become undead. To find the answer, she left the inn and headed for the castle. What she saw there shocked her to the core. Her new friend Ola removed all of her bandages, and from her body, a wave of death energy overflowed. In that instant, every living person present had their life quietly taken away, but moments later, those who had fallen stood up again, their faces filled with peace. Ola smiled innocently toward Kiriko. Aston could hardly believe it. Her gentle friend possessed the power of a god of death. Stunned by the truth, Aston didn't even realize the danger closing in on her. Ola glanced at her without meaning to, and it almost took her life. Fortunately, Sagittarius showed up just in time and saved her. Aston didn't want to believe that the kind princess could do something so cruel. She recalled her own past, and slowly, she began to understand. Maybe Ola didn't even know what her power truly meant. Maybe the people around her had been lying to her all along. Kiriko admitted Aston was right. He had lied to Ola. He told her that her power allowed the undead to return as real humans, so Ola believed that the people in her country were all alive and well. Kiriko loved Ola, if it meant protecting her from the cruelty of the world. He believed the lie was worth it. Aston could not refute him, but she still intended to tell Ola the truth. Yet surprisingly, Ola already knew. She had always sensed something was wrong, but she chose not to break the illusion, because when the living died by her power and rose again as undead, their expressions were always peaceful, and besides, there was always a gentle boy beside her, protecting her tender world. She was happy like this. This world was complicated. There was never an absolute right or wrong. Whether something was good or bad often depended on the person who chose it. Aston decided to respect Ola's choice. Before they left Ordis, Ola brought the three of them to see a baby. That baby was Ola's elder sister Sarika. When their mother was giving birth, she made a wish to the gods. She wished to destroy humanity. Still inside the womb, Ola absorbed that resentment and gained the power of death. But her twin sister Sarika was different. She rejected that wish and stopped her own time. The moment Scarface saw Sarika, she understood everything. The voice she heard, the presence calling to her. It was this child. She felt, with certainty, that this was her baby. Seeing this, Ola smiled brightly, because now, her sister had someone who would love her.